Madam Speaker, while the Conservatives... Apologies. The time has run out. It's only 1 minute for the reply.
Honourable Member Kitchener Centre.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. On the heels of yesterday's disappointing fall economic statement, I rise to continue pushing on this government to end legislated poverty for people with disabilities. Because to this day, people with disabilities continue to disproportionately live in poverty across the country. 41% of those living in poverty have a disability. And while a Canada Disability benefit has been promised to Canadians with disabilities for years, it's now been 6 months since this Parliament unanimously supported the Canada Disability Benefit Act, with no funding committed since. People with disabilities deserve better from this government. And so I'll reiterate what I've said in this House before. If the governing party were serious, they would have done and supported people with disabilities the way they approach childcare. Funding first, then agreements with provinces and territories, and then legislation. But for people with disabilities, it was the other way around. It was legislation first, and now we continue to see funding not get committed. Crickets when it comes to actually funding the benefit. This is all part of why the disability community has been calling for the Disability Emergency Response Benefit, or DERB for short, to recognize legislated poverty for people with disabilities as the urgent crisis that it is. And when it came to CERB in the pandemic, the government acted with urgency. We know that is possible. We know they could do so here again. It's why I asked the Prime Minister in question period weeks ago if he would put in place this emergency benefit while the Canada Disability Benefit regulations continue on. I ask this recognizing that neither he nor I have ever had to live under the crushing weight of legislated poverty, imploring him to act quickly. Now, not only did he not answer my question, and not only has this government not put in place DERB in the time since, but then we had the fall economic statement yesterday. For people with disabilities, nothing. The Canada Disability Benefit, nothing. The Disability Emergency Response Benefit, nothing. It was unsurprising, though, for some, given the words of the Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister on this very question. When asked specifically by the media in the week leading up to the fall economic statement about funding the Canada Disability Benefit, her words, quote, "We can't fund everything." Deeply disappointing to hear that from her after all this government has promised people with disabilities. My overarching concern, ultimately, is that the governing party seems to be allowing the leader of the official opposition to almost govern from opposition. This government needs to wake up and realize that it needs to differentiate themselves from the Conservatives, not become more like them. This government needs to show that they remember what it looks like to be progressive. They need to make clear that the lives of people with disabilities aren't there simply for a photo op, and that Canadians with disabilities expect them to follow through. Because once again, today, Canadians with disabilities continue to live in poverty. And for all the fanfare with the Canada Disability Benefit Act passing, as I'm sure we'll hear from the Parliamentary Secretary, nothing has changed yet for Canadians with disabilities across the country. And so my question to the Parliamentary Secretary is this: what's the point in passing the Canada Disability Benefit if this government doesn't seem to have any plans to actually fund the benefit?
The Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Diversity, Inclusion and Persons with Disabilities.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I thank the member from Kitchener Centre for his question and his advocacy. Our government recognizes that many Canadians with disabilities need additional financial support, and that is the reason for the Canada Disability Benefit. The benefit will provide this. Madam Speaker, we are in no way dilly-dallying and wasting time. The passage of Bill C-22 is a major milestone. Our government has a strong and unwavering commitment to create a more inclusive and barrier-free Canada. This is the result of decades of relentless advocacy by the disability community. I want to thank all parliamentarians of this House who supported the passing of this critical piece of legislation.
This summer, we began
the mobilization process for the development of regulations. We are moving forward with our commitment to create and implement a new Canada Disability Benefit as soon as possible.
This is a big undertaking, Madam Speaker. We must make sure it's done properly and done well. We can't cut corners. We must respect the regulatory process. We must provide opportunities to persons with lived experiences to contribute to the benefit regulations. The disability community must have its say in how this benefit will look. This is required by the Canada Disability Act. We are now actively engaging with a variety and numerous stakeholders. This includes persons with disabilities from a range of backgrounds, provincial and territorial governments, and Canadians at large. We're working together in developing the regulations. The
Minister of Diversity, Inclusion, and Persons with Disabilities and I have held several roundtables with the community who have generously shared their perspectives and experiences.
Last week, we launched an online engagement tool. This will allow Canadians to have their voices heard. We are diligently analyzing this input. This is valuable. The input is valuable. It will help us develop meaningful and impactful regulations. When we get there, the draft regulations will of course be published in the Canada Gazette. This will give one last opportunity to Canadians to share their feedback. Again, we are doing everything to make sure that the disability benefit will be fulsome, will be impactful, and will serve Canadians and lift those who are experiencing economic challenges, lift them up, those who are of working age and living with disability. Merci, Madame la Présidente.
The honourable member for Kitchener Centre.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to make really clear with the Parliamentary Secretary, he's absolutely right. People with disabilities must, I appreciate he used the word must, be involved meaningfully in the collaboration of the design of the regulations. That's the case because it's an amendment that I put forward at committee and was supported at committee. It's now the law. No one is debating the extent to which people with disabilities must be meaningfully engaged in the design of the regulations. The point I'm making is that they don't need to wait for regulations to be done to dedicate the funding. As I mentioned, when it came to childcare, it was the exact opposite. Funding came first, then other steps followed. The federal government could do the exact same thing here. They've chosen not to for 6 months, and time is running out for people with disabilities living in poverty. Are they or are they not going to provide a disability emergency response benefit? And are they going to step up and fund the Canada Disability Benefit?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madame la Présidente, we
Madam Speaker.
as swiftly as possible on ensuring that the disability benefit is fulsome, is done with full consultation with the disability community, and is factoring in the comments, the feedback, the expertise, the lived experiences of the disability community. We are doing the work to make sure this is done properly and fulsomely and is done right. From the beginning, our government has been committed to support Canadians with disabilities. We are filling in the gaps. Yesterday, our Deputy Minister tabled our government's next phase, a plan to help create good middle-class jobs and grow a strong and inclusive economy. The disability community is part of our society and our economy. We are making sure we will get this done properly and in full consultation with the community. This is within the spirit of nothing without us. It helps us to ensure that all voices are included, especially those who have disabilities. Merci.
The motion to adjourn the House is now deemed to have been adopted. Accordingly, this House stands adjourned.